everybody. I'm Terry Knickerbocker. Thank you for coming.
I can do it.
That was pretty good. So we're very excited to be here, and we're very grateful to our hosts, Industry City, who's my landlord, and make all this stuff happen. And they were really, really generous and gave us everything we wanted, including this microphone. So I'm just going to introduce Crystal Rivera real quick. She's going to tell you a little bit about Industry City. Then I'm going to introduce our guests, and then we'll get rolling. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Just wanted to kind of let you know where you are. This is Industry City. We're a 6 million square foot campus, over 400 businesses here, 6,000 people come to work here every day. We encourage you, after today's amazing program, to go downstairs, take a walk through our food hall, visit our tenants. The coffee, the cookies are from Colson's and One Girl Cookie. They're on our ground floor. You can enjoy 10% off downstairs at the landing afterwards, so it's like we're cheering, right? Very excited. It seems really good. So please, take a tour. I'm Crystal. We have Adrian and Sandrine, a bunch of other people here. If you have questions about the complex, what we do here, please feel free to grab us. But, I'll cut it short because I know this is super exciting today. So thank you all for coming.
So, just a couple thank yous, and then we'll bring on the main event. So I want to thank Crystal Rivera, who's Director of Community Engagement, for helping us to connect with the Industry City community, finding the space, which is great, and making this event happen. So thank you, Crystal, that's great. And Sandrine Lago, who is an event coordinator here. And where's that Sandrine? Is she here? She's at work, okay. And Adrian Campo, is that you? Thank you. Yeah. Just for all the organizers, there was a lot of logistics. We needed to get microphones and space and security and signage, and they all made it happen really easy. Kendall Tishner, who's social media and digital marketing here. Alex Barreto, who does photography, and just for spreading the word. So thank all our hosts, yeah? And Sam Falcone, who's right here with the camera. Thank you for doing the camera work, yeah. Takes a village. I'm really happy. Come have a seat. To welcome Emmy Rossum and Sam Esmail. Sam, is your mic working?
Am I so far away from you guys?
Yeah, get closer. Yeah. So I'm just gonna read a little bit about both of you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So Emmy Rossum is a New York-based and Los Angeles-based bi-coastal actress, director, and singer-songwriter. As a young girl, Emmy was a member of the Metropolitan Opera Children's Chorus. And I read actually that you sang a song in 12 keys. Was it Happy Birthday?
Yeah, that was the audition.
That was the audition. Yeah, Happy Birthday in 12 keys. That's really impressive. And later performed in such critically acclaimed films as Nola, Songcatcher, Mystic River, and of course received critical acclaim for her role of Christine in the film version of The Phantom of the Opera. An actress known for her wide range, she is now most known for her portrayal of Fiona Gallagher in the terrific Shameless on Showtime. Yeah. This will be season 8?
This will be season 8.
Incredible, yeah.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, we've been working on it the whole time. She's since starred in Beautiful Creatures, Before I Disappear, You're Not You, and Comet, which is where you met Sam, which is a good segue to talk about Sam Esmail. Sam Esmail is a New Jersey-born screenwriter, film and television director, and television producer. In 2008, his first feature film screenplay, sequels, remakes, and adaptations landed on the blacklist, which has a different connotation now than it used to, right? A yearly survey of over 600 production companies and film executives of the most liked motion picture screenplays not yet produced. In 2014, his feature-length directorial debut, Comet, which starred Emmy and Justin Long, was released by IFC and is now a Netflix staple. He is the creator of the hit TV show Mr. Robot. Yeah?
Always gets more coffee than Shameless.
Writing and directing every episode in season 2, and in case he wasn't busy enough, he's also currently adapting the classic science fiction film Metropolis as a miniseries. So thank you, Emmy, and thank you, Sam, for being here. Let's welcome them.
You sound very impressive.
On paper.
You're great. You're so impressive.
Yeah.
Good job.
And can we also share that you guys are engaged to each other as well?
We are getting married.
And they're getting married.
That's not the most important.
That's great, yeah. So I'm going to open it up with a question that we got on our Facebook page from Marcel, who's hopefully watching. And by the way, I want to say hi to the Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.
Right, thank you. And then we'll just open it up to you, right? And it'll just be a Q&A. So Marcel's, I have a question for both of them since I won't be there. Two-sided question. To Sam, what would he tell an actor who came to him and said, I want to direct an episode?
I mean, I'll answer it the same way I answered you when you asked me that.
Well, I didn't ask if I could direct your show. I haven't asked that yet. And
What if I directed an episode? You know, like I think that's, you know, for me directing.
Well, you've had actors who've asked that.
And for me directing is all about the performance and the storytelling through the performance. You can, you know, with the camera and the lighting, and you can kind of bullshit your way through that to a large extent. Because a movie can look like shit, in all honesty. It can look and sound like shit, but if the performances are amazing, no one remembers. You cannot do the opposite. You cannot have a movie look good and have shitty performances. The movie will suck. It'll be terrible. But I've seen the opposite happen, and it's really the bedrock of good storytelling. And so for me, when I see actors that want to be directors, I encourage it, I applaud it, because it's, now, talking to other actors and trying to get them to do what you want to do, that's a whole different skill set. But that's my long-winded way of saying, yes, you should.
Great. And to Emmy, how should an actor approach a showrunner when they feel they would be a great asset as a director? What to avoid, what to prepare for? I'll be watching, says Marcel.
Well, for me, the idea to want to direct kind of happened really slowly. I'm still not sure if I'm doing in my career exactly what I want to do. I'm not really sure what aspect of the business I enjoy the most. I suppose when you're an actor, everything is very thought out and emotional, and when you watch a director directing you, it makes sense what they do. I mean, they sit around a lot behind the video village, and then they give you notes, and then they seem to like talk to the camera people, and then they go away. And what directors do seems kind of very mystical. But then being around Sam and watching him day in and day out, it kind of demystified the whole process for me and made it a lot more tangible. And I realized, like, oh, it's a series of decisions, and you need to direct, you need to speak loudly and be decisive, especially as a woman. So for me, when I realized that, which was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years into making Shameless, I realized, I think I could direct this. I know these people, I know these characters, I know the tone, I think I could do it. I started kind of like apologetically, jokingly floating out the idea to John Wells, our showrunner, and being like, you know, I think that director was good, but I could do it. And that's kind of the way in which, especially as a woman, I feel we kind of sometimes apologize for what we want. And that didn't serve me at all. In fact, I waited a few seasons kind of acting like that and kind of not being sure of myself. And people can smell when you're not sure of yourself. So I didn't get asked to do it because I didn't ask for it in a serious way. And then eventually one of our other producers was like, you know, if you're really serious about it, you need to ask for a meeting and sit down and ask for the job, because it's a job. Why would they hire you if you're like, nah, I can do it? So, I mean, I talked to you about it, you gave me confidence in it. I sought out a teacher at NYU to teach me cinematography classes, and we broke down some of the episodes of Shameless and talked about why they put the camera there and what my shots should look like. And then when I felt like I really could stand on 2 feet, I went to the showrunner and said, I'm ready, I would like to direct an episode. I took these classes and put me in, coach. And he said yes. Woo. And you were also super supportive, so have Sam at home with you if you can.
And you also just directed an episode of Animal Kingdom that's coming
Yes,
out.
which is the same showrunner. So after he saw that I did well with my own cast, he gave me a job as a straight directing job on a show that I wasn't in for TNT. So I just finished that.
And then maybe some more.
Yeah, and I'm doing another Shameless or 2 this year, and possibly another Showtime show later in the fall. So it's great.
Okay, so we'll open it up to you guys. Just speak up. Does anyone have a question? Yeah.
Yeah. So Emmy, you made the news earlier this year for pursuing income equality when it came to how you were treated and how you were paid on Shameless, which was an absolutely wonderful step in the right direction in this industry. It's something that we as young actors have to come to terms with. Like, yes, we've got to fight for not only our own ability to be paid for our art, but the ability for those alongside us to be paid for theirs, and in the same way and in the same amount. How can male actors, especially white male actors, act best as allies to ensure that that happens even more in the future?
The question's about wage equality and the recent thing that just went on with my contract renegotiations. And if this were a completely closed room and not live streaming on Facebook, I would say more. But I would say that, you know, obviously when we started the show, I was 22 and didn't have nearly as much recognition or career or life experience or award nominations under my belt, so that the wage disparity between me and someone like a William H. Macy made a lot of sense. But after 7 years, with the show evolving in the way it did, it didn't make as much sense. And the conversations about equality went on for about 14 months before it became public, which wasn't the way anybody really wanted it to go. I prefer my private business to be private and let the work just speak for itself. But I will say that Macy was super supportive, and everything that he did, I mean, they saw, like TMZ saw him Christmas shopping at the Grove, and they were like, what do you think about Emmy asking for the same money as you? And he was like, go women! Women's rights! And in 1850 had all these like stats and quotes. So just to be kind of supportive and yeah, in the way that he was very powerful and meaningful to me.
Thank you.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, just what you said, even that you answered the question as, like you said, a white male. Thank you.
Hi. I'm a second year. My name is Lucia. There's a bunch of us in here. And I was wondering if you had any advice for women specifically, or even males, because it's not just a female issue, but a lot of us are running into insecurities when it comes to public solitude, if we have to, be half naked for a scene or anything like that. So I was wondering if you had any advice on how you are able to combat that, or empower yourselves to embrace those roles. And
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a question for Sam too, because Sam has directed a lot of scenes, heterosexual, homosexual, love scenes, and you can't show that much on USA, but somehow you seem to get around it. I mean, not the actual showing, but those scenes are graphic in nature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me as an actor, I think that I'm probably a lot less comfortable with my body than the character Fiona. And I think I kind of like faked that in press for the first few years, like wanting to appear tough, but it actually did wear on me and it was tricky. I would go home at the end of the day and be like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. But at the same time, when I was in it, I felt like the only way to truly tell that character was to forget my own personal problems with it and have, and not judge or bring my own shit to it. And it's a super safe, closed environment where it's really just you and the other actor and the DP and the director and a sound guy, and you just make sure that it's the environment that makes you feel safe. Like often the actors will like make jokes amongst themselves, like to make it more comfortable. Like laughter is a good barrier, but when you have the sound guy like giving his joke in it and he has his clothes on, that's not okay. So there are things, even as we've like come along in our years, that sometimes we get a little too comfortable with our crew, and we have to have conversations about how to make actors, especially new actors that are new to it, how to make it safe for them. And I just directed this thing on Animal Kingdom where this girl had to take her top off, and I could not have felt worse just asking her to do something that I do every day. But she was really confident, and she played the shit out of the character, and it's just what she had to do to tell the story properly.
I don't know if this is bad advice, but this might be terrible advice. But
Oh, and don't take your clothes off in the audition. Don't do that. So I've been in auditions where people will take their top off. If it's written that they get naked, they'll like start, and you're like, no, like, no, please don't, no. We know that you can on the day.
well, I was gonna say, and you tell me if this is bad advice, but I was gonna say, don't be afraid to say no. The one thing I will say is I've had the opposite happen. So, look, it's like saying no to a stunt. If you don't feel safe doing a stunt, you tell the director, I'm not going to do that. Like, I can't do that. And be honest with the person. The worst thing to do is to say yes when you really mean no, and then on the day you're struggling to get through the scene, and you just end up looking bad. Everybody just slows the whole process down. It's the director's problem or the writer's problem to figure out how to work around what you need to do the scene. As far as like actors getting fired for that, I have no idea. I know
Who
that
cares?
I've had actors tell me no, and I just say, okay, well, what would you do, or what is safe for you, and if not, then I'll have to go back and figure out a body double or whatever it is, and see if and you still have to approve that. You have to be okay with that too.
But that's in a situation of an actor that you had already cast.
Right.
I think.
Oh, you mean like in terms of an audition?
Yeah.
Well, then, look, if you really don't feel comfortable and they're upfront with you about this will have nudity or sexual situations or whatever, then just don't audition. It's not worth it. It's not worth getting a part you don't want. It's just not worth it. Is that good? Is that good? That's
Yeah, it's
not
great
bad.
advice.
All right, it's like a C+.
No, that was like an A-.
But I think also, because Emmy's done it a lot, but I think there was a time, at least this season or last season, when there was something in the script that had you doing something that, when we were talking about it, just said, no, I'm not going to do that. And it's not that you won't do it, but you won't do it with that story because it felt gratuitous to you.
Yeah, there was a scene, like a season opener in it's happened more recently than that, but the thing that comes to mind is that, like, the season opener in like season 3 or 4 just had like, we open on Fiona like glistening, topless, sleeping in bed, and I was like, this girl sleeps in t-shirts and boy shorts. We see that every single time we see her sleeping. So why now in the season opener is she sleeping topless? Like, I'm okay to be topless if there's a sexual situation or she's in the shower or it makes sense, or she's changing, or anything that makes sense. But like, we've shown that she sleeps with clothes on, why is she now sleeping naked? And they said, well, it's the season opener. We really just want to, like, come in with a bang and show people that, like, this is a sexual show, and like, these people are free with their bodies. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. It's not the character. So I was just like, no, sorry.
And it's because it doesn't tell the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And your union rules say that you don't have to do that. So know your rights. No one can
But
make you do something
you
you
have
don't
to
wanna
sign
do.
away on it before you do any.
Every
you have to-
single time
you
I
have to
do a
write
nude
it.
scene, they have to bring me a writer. Every single time. Twice in an episode, I've signed it 72 times. But each time, they give you a choice and say, today, would you like to do this or not do this, knowing that there's no penalty involved. And if not, they can either rewrite the scene or cut the scene or figure out how to do it with the shirt on.
But also trying to just be ahead of the ball. The most bewildering thing is saying yes, or knowing that it's in the script and on the day saying no. Like that. That's when it's probably kind of a dick move to do.
Don't do that.
But just be upfront and be, honest about how you feel.
No means no.
Correct.
It is me. First, thanks so much for being here. This is really great to have you guys. I respect both your work so much. I am curious to hear about some hurdles or battles that you had to overcome to get yourself where you are now in your career. Just wondering if you could speak into that process.
Hurdles? You go first.
I mean, every day is a hurdle. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like that, and I don't want to seem ungrateful or disingenuous in any way, but you know, theater is still an area that I haven't tackled or succeeded in yet. That's something that I've been very active in wanting to pursue. I'm putting myself out there and telling theater companies, you know, like, I'm here to do free readings for you, whatever you want. Know that I'm a team player. I want to play in the sandbox with you. Film is also an area I feel like is still a hurdle for me. Studio movies and other things that, for whatever reason, maybe I'm not the right type, or I don't know. Maybe movies, people still see TV people in a certain way. TV, I feel like I've been really lucky in excelling. I mean, I didn't even think this show was going to get picked up. And for the longest time, nobody in the industry even, I mean, a lot of people watch the show, but nobody in our industry actually watched the show except Sam.
I love it.
I love you. You're so great. I mean, and just this week I went and Terry and I worked on an audition for something, and I thought we had like a really good take on it, and the feedback came back for a movie that I was great, but they're gonna go 20s. And I was like, oh my God, it's already over. Like, I just turned 30 35 seconds ago, and now they're like, they want someone who's 20s. So every day is a hurdle. I just got sick of like sitting on a bench and waiting for other people to think that I was right for something that I knew that I could do. So I decided to get inspired and write and direct and create my own destiny, because I got really tired of waiting on a bench. It's really demoralizing and awful, and I feel you.
I mean, my hurdles are a little different because, but you know,
You're like just getting started.
and I'm just getting, yeah. I mean,
You've been waiting
talk about like
forever.
bloomer, yeah. But look, I'll say this, and maybe this is the one overlap, which is
You're like a poor editor eating at Beverly Falafel every day for like 20 years.
This is true.
With so
But I
many
do love
unproduced
Beverly
scripts.
But they're all always on the top.
How many times
of that
did you
list.
almost move home to Jersey?
Many, many times. Because the one thing, here's the one thing I will say, that this feeds into maybe the overlap, is just accept the fact that you're either gonna make it, this might be terrible advice, but in my head, it's like, either I'm gonna make it or just die trying to make it. Like, I was never, like, there were so many times where I'm like, Jesus, should I just go to law school? Or should I just whatever? Like, or should I just
There
become
were
a programmer?
times in our career where Mr. Robot wasn't selling, where I was sitting at a Chinese food dinner
Yeah.
with my friend, and I was like, I think, you know, we're dating and we're serious, and she's like, yeah, but like the script isn't selling, like it's not happening, like
Yeah.
no one wants to buy Mr. Robot, like, do you think he's like just gonna get a real job?
Yeah.
And this is somebody who like works in casting. Like, who knows that what Sam writes is good, and like that for some reason like people weren't picking up on it for a while.
And the thing is that I just made a choice a long time ago that that was never going to be an option. So if I ended up having to like take odd jobs here and there to pay my shitty rent and like just live in or whatever, like I was down for that. I was like, I'd rather do that and just keep writing, keep trying to direct. And you guys, I guess it's all very difficult, but the other thing I would always do is I would always be honest with myself. So if I wrote something and I loved it and then everybody read it, it was like, this fucking sucks, I would try and be honest with myself and reread it and be like, oh, this does kind of suck. But the opposite could happen. Like, I write something and people are like, yeah, you know, because this is what happened with Mr. Robot. Yeah, you know, no one wants to watch a guy on a keyboard, blah, blah, blah. But I knew it was good. And you sharpen that skill of trying to have the good judgment about yourself and your own work. And honestly, that's probably a really important skill to develop very early on. You know that old adage, you know, you get through a bunch of no's to get to the one yes? Well, that's what you're doing when you get through all those no's, sharpening your kind of judgment on your own work so you can be really honest about it and be honest about the things you need to work on to get that one step closer to that yes.
I also kind of like, I don't like auditioning. Nobody likes going in there. But there's a part of me that feels like if I've done a great job in creating a character and setting a tone and figuring out what my perspective is, and I feel like I did a good job, that even though nobody's ever going to see it because I didn't get the job, I did it, and it becomes like a memory and part of my arsenal, and something I can use in a future audition. I can remember that character that I created, maybe I could do it like that. So it's not like all is lost just if you don't get the part, because I watch you casting your shows, and I watch the casting tapes with you, and it's one of the most illuminating things and freeing things in a weird way as an actor, because the way you cast people sometimes has nothing to do with who's the best person, like who's the best actor. Sometimes it's like they give you a vibe, or this person like messed up a little so they seem more broken, or like you just didn't like that person didn't nail that one joke and that totally threw you off, or
I mean, I'll say this real quickly about auditioning for Elliot. We auditioned. We must have had over 100 auditions, and God,
there were a lot of actors who were really good.
really good. And they did the, if you know the show, they did.
And it was like a
They did the coffee shop
15-page
scene.
audition
Yeah,
where
it
you're
was
like
this long
preparing
scene.
for like 2 straight days before, and I'm like, you're like, I have to get this because like I've lost 48 hours of my
Yeah.
life to this,
Yeah.
and if nothing comes of this, I'm gonna kill myself.
So actors came in, script memorized. It's a long scene. If you notice the scene, it's longer than it was in the show, and so many great actors came in well prepared, polished, ready to go, like, and did an amazing job. But it's that the thing about, and you guys know this, the thing about certain characters is there's just a certain sort of otherness that you also need that fits that character, and especially given if the director is very specific about what he sees in his head or what he doesn't see in his head. So Rami comes in, and he hates me telling this story, but he was reading, he didn't know his lines, he was completely unprepared, and but he was fucking phenomenal. He was amazing, he was perfect, and the minute I saw him, it was like, because he did have a take, even though he was reading. He did have that, he had it in his head who this guy was. And he made a choice, and it was a bold choice. I mean, it was erotic, and I was like feeding off that energy more than all the other flaws that were going on in the audition. And that's what zeroed me in on, this is the guy, this is my guy for the show. And so it's not, and that's, so this, the moral of that story is you should still be prepared and you should not read off the script. So I'm not telling you not to do that. But I think it's in the rejection. Know that if you did a good, it goes back to that thing when I knew Mr. Robot was a good script, and even though I got rejected for whatever reason, I still held on to that. So you guys need to hold on to that too when you get rejected, or because it will happen, and it will have nothing to do with what you did and the work that you did. It just may not fit into the vision of the director or the producer.
Don't you feel you still say, oh, that person's really good, I'll remember them for something?
And that's the other thing. I'm glad
That's
you
the
brought
thing
that
I
up.
hang on to.
I hang on to that all the time. There are so many people that auditioned for other parts that wasn't quite right, but I thought about them and brought them back. Eve, yeah. She auditioned for something else. Now she's Hot Girl.
So Hot Carla is a character.
Even Frankie. I think Frankie came and auditioned for
Angela.
And then I was like, no, you're not Angela, but you're definitely Shayla. Yeah.
So that if you're good or if you're not the right je ne sais quoi, they might think of you for something else. It's not all lost.
Arnold? Yeah, Sam, I wanted to ask you, a few of us are in the process of writing our first solo show. So as a writer, do you have what's your initial process? Because right now, it's very easy to sort of get riddled with the anxiety of making something happen and bringing all this action into the work.
You mean like a one-man show? Is that what you mean by a solo
Yes,
show?
which I know it's different than...
Right. Well, what's great about one-man show, like one of my favorite movies of all time is Taxi Driver. And Taxi Driver is great because it is one of the best character movies I've ever seen. And maybe even in fiction, just because you are inside this man's head, you understand his worldview, you understand his point of view, you understand his psychology, you understand how he feels, you understand why he feels how he feels. There's so, and then it's never on the nose. It's all layered in. It's all subtext. Even though he's talking to you a lot, even though there's a lot of VO, the VO is not there for exposition. It's there to kind of give you a vibe and a feeling about who this guy is. And you immediately, that to me is probably the best thing in terms of an actor, especially with a one-man show that you could do, is find that real authentic person that I kind of know who he is, but I've never seen him like that before, you know? And to me, the trap that you might fall into is, well, I want to showcase. I haven't seen Taboo. And I love Tom Hardy, but I've heard that it falls into that trap of like, well, Tom Hardy's gonna do things that just Tom Hardy does, you know, and which is great. I mean, if you want, and so, but I would probably argue, instead of doing the showcase of your talent, just make a really specific choice on who that character is. That I'm gonna, because remember, goes back to my earlier point about movies. I don't remember necessarily, when you watch a movie and you think back about the favorite movies, what you remember are the characters. I remember Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction. Yeah, there was a lot of cool shit in the movie and everything, but I remember Vincent Vega, I remember Jules. I remember people. That's the big takeaway I think that storytelling gives you, is not necessarily the plot. I don't necessarily remember every plot turn or machination, but I remember those people. That's why performances are so important. So make a memorable, and I think the only way to do that is just make a really honest, unique perspective on a character and like commit to that and base your one-man show on that.
Someone else? Yeah, Harley's.
Yeah, thank you for being here first, and I'm very curious about what do you do to feed yourself in the process of being creative? Like sometimes, like we have to be creative all the time, and sometimes we get a little bit stuck. At least I do. It's like, oh, you need to be more creative. Like, what things do you do to feed yourself in order to produce?
I do other things that aren't acting, but that are like emotional extensions of that. So I'll play the piano and sing, even if I'm like playing acoustic versions of a terrible top 40 song. Sometimes
You did this morning.
I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to like connect to something in yourself, but you don't want to work on that audition scene anymore. And like doing a scene by yourself is really demoralizing and terrible in the mirror. So or even like, I was super into pottery last summer. Something that feels like you're making something with your hands, like, because I feel that what we make you can't hold on to. So I like making things or fixing things or polishing I don't know, like making jewelry or anything that doesn't necessarily, that feels like you're making something you can hold on to and something that's beautiful and something that's creative, but not exactly what it is you do. It'll feed you in a way that's like nourishing, I think. And Sam watches a lot of TV.
That's what I was gonna say.
Literally.
But I think the lesson here is procrastination. That's the key. I honestly, to be honest with you, you should Google. There's a TED Talk about procrastination. Actually, it's Warby Parker, Neil. Isn't that his name? Yeah. It's all
Neil Blumenthal.
Who Emmy knows it, but apparently procrastinators are actually more successful in their industries than people who are productive and efficient. And I think, this is true. I mean, Google it, you will see.
Yeah, but you have two very successful people up here. One that procrastinates and one doesn't. So
Wait, you just sat here and talked about pottery class.
no, I talked about being creative and having a creative outlet. That's not procrastination. It's different. Sitting in front of the TV and watching a marathon of Vanderpump Rules is procrastination.
I have to say, Vanderpump inspires me a lot. But in all seriousness,
But that's not untrue. I mean, besides Vanderpump, you do watch things that are of
I watch
the
other
tone
movies. Yeah.
of the thing you're creating because it puts you in the mood. And sometimes, Terry, like, we will watch things, like, I don't remember what audition we were doing, but we went back and we watched Wild Things or Wild Thing, and we pulled from that character. So sometimes there are ways, that's a different thing, it's not being creative, but there are ways of exposing yourself to something that might give you a hook into the character that you can get more from just staring at the page and thinking about what's inside you. Sometimes it's outside in.
And it's not, it just don't force anything. When you start forcing, that's probably the enemy of creativity, right? If you're sitting there thinking, I gotta get through this, I gotta get this done, then you might as well be making widgets. And whatever that follows after that thought of, I need to get this done, is probably terrible. If you have a deadline, in 2 hours, you gotta turn whatever it is that you gotta turn in, but you're feeling that way, then just go faster at the procrastination. I know she's gonna yell at me about that, but go do something else. Do, whatever, go take a walk in the park or listen to some music. I mean, that is one thing that I do too. I'll listen to a lot of music, and I'll drive, or I'll get in a cab, or I'll go down the subway. But I wouldn't force it, because I think that'll be your enemy.
I'm just looking just on this topic. This is Ames just came in, and Ames had a baby.
There's a little baby there.
About a week ago. Now, Ames
Congratulations.
was about 2 weeks late, was it?
Yes.
Now, I don't think she was procrastinating. I think
Sometimes things just need to cook for a little
some
longer.
things need to cook, right? And something was waiting to be born. And there can be a value, actually. I'm agreeing with Sam that there can be a value in the procrastination. So it's not just, oh, I got to fix this. I think it's to pay attention to what's happening and see what the gold is in that, because you know why you're here. You want to do something with your life, and you want to do something creative. And if things are stuck, there's probably something in that, I would say.
Yeah, there's merit to letting your mind wander.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm
Kaylee.
Fraser. I graduated with Terry last year, and speaking of the procrastination and all of that, because I definitely procrastinate and I fight it all the time. I get lost in daydreams all the time and stuff like that. So I guess this is for Emmy. How, starting out in the industry and starting in acting, how do I get myself to, really push myself to be organized, or to figure out how to start auditioning, and I guess, get myself together and less procrastination? Like, how would you suggest someone go about doing that?
Well, I'm the kind of person that likes to have structure to my day, because our days are different every day, and nobody is telling us be here unless you have to be on set, which is very structured. So usually I set things that I figure out what time I work best in. I don't work well at night. I don't retain information. I'm not a night owl. I work really well in the morning and in the middle of the afternoon. By 5 o'clock, I'm pretty much done. I'm just not good. I know, I can enjoy myself after that, but I really can't come up with anything brilliant. I'm not at 2 o'clock in the morning. So know yourself, and then set parameters of the things that are important to you. What do you need to get done that day? And try to shape your day. Am I taking a class this day at this time? Okay, well then I'm gonna decide that for the next month I'm gonna work on my Southern accent, so that when I get a call for an audition, this is what I'm working on this month. So every day I know I'm good from noon to 2, so I'm gonna have my lunch at 11:30, and then I'm gonna read the accent book and listen to tapes and just work on it. That's what I'm gonna do for myself. This is what I'm working on. Then I'm gonna wait for auditions to come in. When something comes in, that'll take the forefront. But other than that, I'm gonna work on these accents. Or I'm gonna learn a new skill, or I'm gonna set a time to work out 4 times a week, and after I work out, then I'm gonna work on my accent. So that you feel like you're working on yourself, so you don't feel like you're in this wasteland of just waiting for the phone to ring, because that just feels terrible. And then when the phone can ring, the agent will be like, want to hear my Russian accent? It's getting really good.
So just really structure your day, because like you said, nobody's doing it for you.
Yeah, there's no
So you
parent
have to-
anymore.
You have to set.
Can I just jump in, being an expert procrastinator? Because a lot of what you just said would scare the shit out of me. And I don't know if it scared you a little bit. Because she is
I'm
she's a
working
drill
on
sergeant.
writing a script, and I have literally a reminder in my calendar every day that says, write! So that I know that I do it every
But
day.
at least try and do one of those things a day. And then maybe you add another event every day. You know what I mean? But at least just the one.
Yeah.
Lunch is a good one. I started at lunch.
You may also need some outside accountability. Some people can do it like Emmy does, and some people, I work with this trainer. Now, why do we need a trainer? We do the same fucking thing every time we go. I know what we're gonna do, but if I make the appointment with him, I know that I'll do it more. So I need that kind of outside thing that I pay for, right? That just keeps me on track, and that is easier for me than just doing it on my own. So sometimes that's just the kind of person you are.
Yeah.
There's a New York Times bestselling author named Gretchen Rubin who's written some books about that, and I was just listening to a podcast who says, yeah, some people just need outside accountability. And sometimes it's friends, and sometimes it's family, and sometimes that's burdensome for them. And so you pay someone, you pay a coach who calls you up and says, what are your goals for this week? Okay, what did you do? And just having that appointment might be useful for you.
Totally.
When I just got out of my training, we had a peer group, and we got together every week or every 2 weeks. We just said, so what are we working on this week? Are we working on a Southern accent? How many auditions do you want to have? What are you going to do? And just having that accountability so you don't have to walk in with your head down going, I didn't do anything, kind of put the fire under our ass for a while. You know, it broke apart, but it kept us going.
Yeah. Hi. Terry, you know, in training talks about, you know, having the spirit of like fuck it, and not maybe being so precious. And so, with things, so how do you two maintain such a high standard, and yet not get like debilitized by like it not being maybe as perfect as you wanted or exactly what you wanted?
I think trying to control the outcome or trying to control your performance is the total enemy. I mean, it's counterintuitive because you want to hit all those beats and hit all those notes, but I mean, we work on the moment before a lot, just putting yourself in the right headspace so that if intellectually you know kind of the shape of where you want to go, you can kind of just let it happen. Was that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. Or like maybe, you know, I don't know if you've ever like left a scene being like, that was pretty good, but maybe I could have done it this way or that, or it could have been a little better, whatever that means, or maybe having shot like an episode.
I often figure out how I want to do the scene in the car on the way home, which is the worst thing ever. But generally it actually comes together pretty well in the edit, and generally I've usually thought about it so much beforehand, and not in a way that I've thought about it so much and had anxiety about it. I've thought about it so much and kind of like that I've almost lived through it to the point that I can almost like just let it happen. I'm not holding on to it so tightly. I don't know, you work with actors that hold on too tightly.
I was going to say, because one of the things that I look for when I audition anyone is someone to surprise me. And I usually do open casting calls for that reason. Like, you know, I'll tell my casting director, even though it's written for 20s man, I would want women and anybody to come in at any age, because I just want to be surprised. I just want to see the character that I didn't know that I wanted. And that actually, to me, is what I think the attitude should be when you go into an audition. It's a little bit like the one-man show advice is make a bold choice, but you have to be careful because you don't want it to be stylized. So it's not about like making I'm just going to scream every line. That's obviously stupid. But if you have and it really, when I think about characters, it really goes back to real people that I know, the real people that and when you see them on a movie or a show, you're like, yeah, I know that guy, I know that girl, I've met that person before. When they do that little thing with the thing, and SNL does it great because they do characters of people, but you're like, I know the Target lady, I know that person, that's my aunt, or that's the friend, whatever it is, and it's those little things where you're just like those little kind of choices where you make, the more you make those, I think the more interesting you're going to make whatever is on that script, because, and I'm speaking as a writer, they will not nail the character. You will nail the character at the end of the day. You have to nail the character. You have to bring more than what's on the page. Don't listen to the page. There's there's 10 million more layers that the writer hasn't even thought about that you're going to bring to it. So bring that. And then your compass, your true north is honesty. Am I doing this to showcase something that I can do, or am I doing this because it feels real and this is a real person that I see is in this scene?
And there's a difference between real and flat, too. A lot of the times I was seeing people come in and audition for Animal Kingdom that I just did. People thought that real was barely talking audibly and kind of just saying every line like this because this is natural, right? And that's actually totally not natural. Some people are very animated. That doesn't make it too big.
Although that could work if it's written that the guy's screaming, and then you do that. You know what I mean? Someone actually did that's Omar did that with Santiago. There's this whole speech where he auditioned. Every audition was like, and you guys better fucking catch these 5'9" hackers, or we're gonna fucking. And that's the way it was written. That's the way I wrote it. And then Omar was a great actor, auditioned it. You guys are all fucking assholes because you can't catch these 5'9" hackers. And there was just something so fascinating, and I know that guy. I know the deadpan.
But that's scary for an actor to not pay attention to what's on the page, because the casting director
Telling
could be
you
like,
don't.
"Can you fucking read?" You know what I mean?
I know.
Like, what if we feel scared to make a bold choice because it doesn't say that the person has a lisp, or it doesn't say that the
everything-
person has Tourette's?
I think everything. Well, look. I mean.
I mean, what if I decide that my character has a limp? And you
Right.
come in and you're like, what the fuck? This person is a terrible actor. They didn't pay attention to what I wrote.
Then you rely on that compass I was telling you. Then you rely on that true north of, am I being honest here? Is this an honest person that I see being in this scene? And in this case of Omar with the Santiago character, of course, you being firm with your group doesn't necessarily mean you have to yell every line. So, or am I doing Tourette's because I think it's funny and cool and they'll like it and I'll convince them? And that's the fine line. But I will say this, even if you make that bold choice, which Omar did, which Rami did, and you're scared, and I think they were scared when they made a different choice than what was written. Yeah, I think great things happen when you just take a chance on yourself.
But I mean,
Even
in
when
both
you
of
are-
those cases, you're talking about actors, Rami, who is a little weird, and Omar, who is kind of commanding and strong. So you're talking about casting actors in roles that were kind of similar to who they naturally are. So what if I come in and I get, because I don't actually know the answer to this, so now I'm about to learn. Like, what if I come in and I've made a bold move and I'm playing a character that isn't who, what if I have to come in and I have to play a character that's not assertive, that doesn't have a voice, and I'm auditioning for you, and obviously it's me, so that's not me. Like, when I come into the room, am I supposed to try to convince you that I'm someone that I'm not, or am I supposed to come in as Emmy, and then when you say action, am I supposed to become the character?
Well, look.
Because that's very confusing. You also worry, like, well, if I come in as myself and then I turn into a character, they're never gonna believe it. Should I go in and try to convince them? And then how long do I have to keep up that charade?
Well,
Like, then if I craft service and I'm like, oh, you can go first, I'll just have my eggs later. What do I do?
I mean, I go back to your true north. Like, just be honest. I don't love it when someone's walking in and they're pretending whatever they think, and then they're being the character. Oftentimes, if you're trying to be on, that's not a good thing. And then, again, this might be terrible advice. I'm just giving you my perspective. Like, when you're trying to be on, I feel like people will sense that. In fact, if you sense that, I think, why not? Why wouldn't other people sense that? Unless you're some master con man manipulator, like for me, it's like, let's just try and be honest with ourselves about who we are when we're doing the interview process before the audition, and who best we think we can portray that character. But to go back to your question about, do you channel who you are, and do you, or versus do you transform yourself? That all depends on how you see the character. I mean, I bring this up a lot. It was a great year of acting. And it was Sean Penn in Milk versus Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. And if you guys ever
Sam
seen,
loves award season so much. It's very
no,
strange.
I don't give a shit about the awards, but I love
the movies.
I love the movies. I love watching great movies, and that's when they typically come out. But Mickey Rourke, if you've seen The Wrestler, I mean, he is Mickey. That is Mickey Rourke. That's literally his career. That's his. He's channeling himself in the rawest, in the realest way that I've seen any actor really do in a long time. Then you have Sean Penn, who completely transformed himself into Harvey Milk, and giving out the award to one or the other to me was a little silly because it's two different approaches. But wow, what at such peak, for both of them, at such at the peak of their career and their artistry, and then that just kind of proves you can't really go wrong. I mean, both of those guys it's all in how you see the character and what if you can channel yourself, and if it is you and you want to play at that raw center, go for it. Or if you see a Harvey Milk and you're just like, I know I'll work on the mechanics, but I know the heart of this guy, and I'm going to completely transform myself into doing that, then you do that. I don't think there's a wrong answer.
So if I'm coming into audition for you, and the second scene, and the first season's like, first scene is comedy, and the second scene is a crying scene, how long can I ask for to get there? Can I ask for like 30 seconds, 2 minutes? Would you prefer I leave the room and come back?
I would prefer that be done before you, yeah. But you mean in between?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. No, I don't mind if you want to leave and come back.
But like, if it takes 30 seconds, do you want to wait?
Sure.
But what about 2 minutes?
Sure.
But not 5?
No.
Okay. These are good things to
I
know.
have a question.
I'm gonna take someone in the back. Yeah.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a statement real quick. I'm a big fan. Love Shameless.
What's your name?
Oh, my name is Juan. I work at Design Within Reach.
Uh-huh.
I have to go back to work now. I want to stick to
Oh, thank you, Juan from Design Within Reach.
But if you got some time, I would love for you to stop by. I just like to
I love DWR, and I love your eBay outlet as well. Thank you. Amazing.
I would love for you to stop by so I can take a picture with you.
Thank you.
Bye, Juan. Danny, were you raising your hand?
No, I was just enjoying all of that.
Juan. Yeah, Tommy.
I have a question for Sam. Sam, first of all, thanks for being here. I saw kind of a little bit of layers overlapping with the taxi driver thing that you said and Elliot speaking to himself. And then on top of that, I also write, and I love TV. Do you ever write and say, wait a minute, did I see that somewhere else? I mean, does it get in the way of
I mean, have you seen Mr. O? No. Yeah, I get inspired by other movies. I think it's bullshit when people... look, if you're making something derivative, that's not good. But to be inspired by other movies or TV shows, that's to me just as inspiring as music or literature or, you know, life or reading an article. I don't worry about that. I worry about it when am I aping something? Am I trying to ape? And you could definitely see that in movies when they're just trying to be, I mean, they literally they come up with the idea, Titanic in space, so that's what we'll do. And we'll have all the beats of Titanic, but we'll be in space, so it'll be a little different. That's you're just trying to rip something off.
But there are reasons why that structure worked, right?
There are reasons why what structure works.
If a movie works, it works. There's a reason why that structure works.
Right.
So should people try to do?
No.
Okay.
Look, in my opinion, there is a structure to storytelling, and you should when you watch movies, if you're a writer, you should definitely start to pay attention to things happen usually after 15 minutes, and then something changes after 30 minutes, and then something really big happens about halfway through the movie, and that's actually just a structure in everything. Scenes are structured like that. Halfway through a scene, something big usually, and you're like, whoa, that's totally different. And now we're ending kind of in the opposite of where we started, if it's a good scene anyway. So you should start paying attention to those cues. But I wouldn't, to me, I'm just like saying this ad nauseum now, I'm a broken record, but it's about the honesty thing. So if you're trying to make Titanic in space, if that's your goal, then that's what you're going to get at the end of the day. That's what people are going to get, and that's the honest answer to that. But if you're trying to tell a love story in space, and as you're writing it, Titanic inspired you, and Romeo and Juliet inspired you, and all these other movies inspired you, but you want to tell this love story in space, and you're honest about that, that's what you're going to get. That's probably what you're going to get at the end of that, and it's going to have its own vibe, even if it's influenced by all these other things.
Chris Albrigo has a question, and you're welcome to answer as well, Terry, kind of piggybacking off this commitment to artistic integrity.
This is a Facebook question?
Yeah, he's watching the live
great.
stream.
Hi, Chris.
He's wondering your thoughts, given the current socio-political climate. This is a little tricky. He's saying it's difficult to escape feeling like pursuing my own personal, professional interests and artistic satisfaction may not be in service to greater social needs of our time. Can you comment on the ways one can use personal artistic pursuits to tangibly help people in need So that's kind of a bit of a thorny question. but-
Catharsis and humor and empathy and human connection, which is what we hope to strive for at the end of the day with our art, is in service of the people. I mean, if you're just doing your art for yourself, that's totally masturbatory. You could just be doing that in your living room. You could be like doing Shakespeare in your living room for no one. What's the point of that? I mean, that's a rehearsal. I think we are both. I mean, at home, we're talking about the political landscape and everything that's happening, and a lot, as I think a lot of people are. This is not for Make America Great Again, this sweater. This is just for America. But I think that, I mean, as the only woman up here, I would say there seems to be kind of a war on women right now. And so, at least that's how it feels in a lot of ways, with how the things that were said during the election, the things that came out. So for me, it was incredibly important to not be afraid to take a leadership role within my business, to ask for equal pay, to remember. I mean, I go back to, I hope we're a little liberal. If not, you can start throwing tomatoes. I go back to what Hillary said in her concession speech: remember, you are valuable and powerful. And I just tell myself that. And so I try to go into every experience knowing that, and try to overcome the forces that are trying to minimize women, to take a leadership role, to decide that I'm not going to wait for people to cast me, to write what I want to do, to try to direct what I want to do. And at the end of the day, I think to think that creating art is, I mean, some of the greatest art will come out of this time because people are so stirred up. Great art comes out of times of revolution. So I'm psyched. Bring it on.
I mean, just to say, like, having a megaphone is probably one of the best ways to start a conversation in society and culture. That's how things progress, and that's how things regress. And to me, art is the best megaphone because it's not literal, it's emotional, and it's intuitive, and it's about humans, and it's about their behavior. And those are all those things that will resonate, I think, a lot more than a literal speech by a politician saying, this is what we stand for. Well, but if you watch it, if you tell me a story where I'm empathizing with somebody else, and I'm with that other person, or I'm with a woman who's struggling, or I'm with a trans person who's struggling, now I feel it in a much more three-dimensional way. And to me, that is a much more powerful megaphone than a lot of other forms of communication. That's what art is. It's creative communication, and it's probably, in my opinion, the most powerful one.
Yeah, I would just say, I remember at 9/11 in NYU, where I teach, also was kind of at the epicenter of all that. And the campus and the city and the country and the world was shattered by all that. But there was a gathering about 2 days afterwards that E.L. Doctorow, the writer who wrote Ragtime and many other books, was speaking at. He's dead now, an English professor at NYU. And everyone in the room was an artist. And he said, artists have always been on the front line, and you need to think of yourself as a rescue worker. And our job is to report the world to the world. And it gave me such a sense of value, because I was there, because I was about to direct a show by Tennessee Williams, and does this even matter? I mean, look at what's going on. And in fact, it gave me renewed vigor and commitment to tell the story. And I'm convinced that art is healing. I mean, you look at a movie like Boys Don't Cry, people's lives are changed by that, because they see themselves finally represented. And laughter is healing, and conflict is healing. And so I think as long as it's not being done in your living room, we have a sacred mission. And we're not just jerking off. And there's a lot going on, and absolutely great art's going to come now. There already are amazing plays being written right now. Right? The guy who wrote the Kentucky Cycle, which took him 3 years, I think, to write, he won a Pulitzer Prize for it, wrote a play about Trump in 2 days. And it's being done in 10 theaters across the country right now. So I'm excited about this time and about what we get to do, and I think what we do matters.
I think right now, SNL is probably not only the best show on TV right now, but it's having one of the best seasons ever. And I learned more about Sean Spicer from Melissa McCarthy than all of the other major news networks combined.
Yeah, but you're seeing how in that specific sense, that art is actually having an effect on the very people
Absolutely.
it's representing.
Yeah.
It's pissing them off, which is what it intends to do.
No,
so never doubt that you can have an impact.
And the fallout from that, you know, you'll hear, you're in the industry, what do you shouldn't be talking politics, blah, 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 you're just an actor, you're just a whatever. And what's so crazy about it is that's when you know it's working. That's when, see, to me, great entertainment is political. It is making a stand. It is saying a point of view. It is saying something. I mean, Boys Don't Cry is a political movie. It's a political movie. Now, so is Moonlight. And these are not movies that are trying to be political. No, they're not standing on some soapbox and shouting out what you should or should not believe. But it is telling you it's taking a strong stance on a certain point of view that you may otherwise never have known about. And that's a controversial thing. And that's going to anger people. And that's going to have people telling you to shut up. And when that happens, you know you're doing something right.
Is that Gil back there?
Yeah.
Stand up.
Hey. Thank you for coming. Everybody said thank you. Very polite. I just wanted to ask about I feel like as auditioning actors, we have like such a huge boom of film and TV and like specifically on-camera opportunities, which like I think that there's probably different needs for the different mediums. So I wanted to ask because I love Comet. He's awesome. Awesome.
Thanks.
Like, it has to be one of my favorite films of the last like decade. I think it's incredible. But then I think Mr. Robot's also incredible. But I assume that the actors have to do different work. Like the same work emotionally, but different work technically. So I just was curious about, I guess, as a director and as an actor who does both, and as a coach who coaches everything.
Do you coached her, right, for Comet?
I did.
Yeah.
A lot.
Why don't you guys talk about it?
I would say movie and TV is absolutely the same.
Yeah.
I mean, most people
There's
are
no
people
difference.
are watching movies and TV on their phones, I mean, it used to be different because your TVs were small and your movies were big, so you were bigger on TV because the TVs were small, so you had to do. But it's not like that anymore. For a web series or everything, you just have to stick with the honest thing. And I always think if you feel the feeling, you don't have to make your face do anything. It's gonna come out.
But are you also asking Gil about the tone of that material, not just the TV versus movies? Like the Comet has a different flavor than Mr. Robot. Comet's a much more romantic film, and Mr. Robot's a much more cynical piece of material. Are you asking about that?
Well, I guess I just wonder about like one of the reasons I wanted to come study was because I felt like I wasn't as in tune with the honesty, because I had been asked in a screen test. I've been told by the director that it's a series regular, so he has to talk faster because he has a lot to say. And so if he's going to be on screen for 30 minutes, that person, I felt like my honest truth was I was taking my time, but this person wanted it faster.
So.
I didn't know if there was like a reason for that technically because of the TV medium.
No, there's no reason. I mean, the reason is.
Hold on, so people can hear. The question is, he got a screen test and he thought he was doing his honest truth, and the director wanted him to talk faster. And is that like a TV thing?
It's not a TV thing. In fact, Mr. Robot, we don't talk fast at all. We talk really slow, and it's become kind of our thing. But traditionally, there is a TV trope of talking really fast because you got to get to the Tide commercials, and it's like 43 minutes with and so They want these scenes to be done at a certain clip at a certain time. The other thing, I love Aaron Sorkin, so he's got amazing dialogue. Going back to this other thing, people try and ape Aaron Sorkin a lot. So they think if people are reading their lines faster, it's going to sound all awesome and Sorkin-y. And even like Tarantino, because Tarantino does that. People are like, so there is a derivative thing to it. But ask, is there a reason why this guy talks faster? And if the reason is bullshit, whatever, you just have to do it. It's a technical thing, it's TV, whatever, which is bullshit. That's a bullshit reason that helps you, that says nothing about the character. Then you, unfortunately, if you really want this job and you really like the character, go back, think about it, and figure out what is an honest reason that can give this guy that is going to make him talk faster. What is that thing? Or start thinking about the line, learn the dialogue second nature and start playing the beats slower, where it makes sense, and the dialogue is just kind of layer on top. You know what I mean?
I don't understand what.
Well, I look at dialogue.
I was just freaking out because I was like, I don't understand the note.
Well, I think about like Aaron Sorkin. A lot of it is repetition, and a lot of it is lyrical, and it's not about the line; it's about how it sounds. And he says this a lot too. So the emotional beats kind of happen not necessarily on the line. It's not really reflected in literally what the words are, because that's just about the musical notes. But it's really, it's like singing a song. It's really like just playing the emotion underneath that. And it's not about the lyrics. So divorce the two.
Yeah, Rachel.
Hi. Thank you guys so much for being here.
You don't all have to say that.
So I'm wondering if you guys can share a little bit some thoughts about how to create a healthy, collaborative, creative relationship between actor and director, especially, switching hats. If you kind of have a perspective on like what it is to be an actor on a show and like what you're looking for from a director, what the director's looking for from you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like what qualities you value in actors?
As an actor, I'm looking for a director who understands the character. I'm looking for you to understand, especially if you wrote it, I'm looking for you to understand the character at least as well as I do. And I hope that our opinions about what's really going on with the character are pretty similar. That doesn't mean that I need to share all the nitty-gritty backstory that I've come up with about the character. Sometimes it's nice to keep that private, especially because sometimes when you share that, it becomes less usable in a weird way, less impactful to you. Sometimes it's nice to have that be your secret. And I'm looking for the director to be able to be honest with me. And as an actor, I need to not take, as long as they're not being mean-spirited with their direction, which sometimes they are, and you just need to kind of shrug that off because they're just clearly having the period. God, that was really sexist, wasn't it? Can I say that because I'm a woman? Can I be sexist?
No, I thought you were talking about men when you said that.
I was.
Oh, okay. I see how it's sexist now.
I'm looking for somebody to be able to, I don't want a director that doesn't talk to me. I want a director that's gonna direct me, but not micromanage me. But I'm the kind of actor who can take very specific notes about specific beats and make it happen. There are some actors that aren't. As a director, I'm looking for, and also as an actor, I'm looking for a director to create a safe, kind of happy working environment, and one that's safe, not necessarily that's reflective of the material. Like if it's a horrible family drama, I don't need the director to create drama. I need him to make us feel safe so that we can save that for on camera or on stage. But some directors are crazy like that. Some people want high energy off camera if it's high energy on camera. Some people want to create drama because they think that helps. You just need to keep yourself safe as an actor and protected, and have those people that you go into your trailer and you call and you go, this person is insane. Okay, I'm good, I got that out. Now I can go back to work and not take it personally. And as a director, you're really aware of what actors are good and what aren't. You're really aware of the actors who are smart, who can take notes, and who aren't. You're really aware of an actor that you can say, sometimes for an actor the only thing you can say is make it bigger or make it smaller. Sometimes they can't process a note that's more specific than that. Or sometimes they're too anxious, they can't hear anything more than that. I mean, the hardest thing to deal with is a day player who, this is a really big day to them, you know? So they're making it a bigger deal than it has to be, and you just kind of want it to be a throwaway moment. Like, it's not a huge character, you just kind of need to get through it. And I mean, I've worked with one actor who I had a reminder on my phone every 90 minutes to flatter them, because that's what they needed. They needed constant stroking, and I wasn't holding that against them. They were just insecure. So every 90 minutes I would go in, that was great, you look great, blah, blah. Because sometimes people just need a little hand holding. So it's not against like who's smart, and people are different on different days. So it's just like to be there and to know that the actors are, at the end of the day, they're more important than the director. Because the director's in control, but they're not on camera. It's the director's job to make the actor, they have nothing if they walk into the edit not having gotten the performance they need.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and it's weird. The one thing I would say as an actor, when you're working with a director, is demystify that a little bit for you, because don't walk in thinking the director is like this god, even if it's like a god, even if it's Martin Scorsese. At the end of the day, they're just people, and they have an idea in their head of who this person is. You have an idea, so you have a lot of power. Own that power, and you know, if the director suggests something that feels wrong to you, try it out maybe, you know, give him that respect just like you would any other person, and then say, can I try something else or whatever, or can I pitch you another idea? But just I would say just demystify that relationship a little bit, because the one thing you don't want to do is get all tight and fear-based and like, oh shit, that means he hates it and I'm terrible, I gotta nail it on the next one. Then you just start going downhill and we're 20 takes later. So don't do that. Just like try and just think of it as like you're just a coworker as opposed to a boss. And then I guess from a director's point of view, it's knowing the different personalities, right? Everyone's different. Everyone's going to want different things. They're going to want notes in a different way. I mean, the one thing that, you know, I know certain actors, I'm not going to get it on take 1 or 2. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until take 9 to get it. And there are some actors that are, you know, are good at 1 and 2. And if you're in take 9, you're just it's going to go downhill. So like that's just different for everybody. And it's, you know, you're just like a manager trying to like put in the right people at the right times with the right energy. And a lot of that is getting out of the way. I mean, this is the one thing I'd say like to me, 90% of directing an actor is casting. You can cast the right person. I mean, I don't really have to give Rami notes anymore. It's a little bit like the bigger, that's what I want. I want my job to be easy. I want the guy to know this person and he's on point, he comes in, nails it, and walks off. Like, that's what I want. Like, if I'm Phil Jackson, I don't want to tell Michael, this is a very dated reference, but I don't want to tell Michael Jordan, here's how you hit the 3, okay? So next, let me just show it to you. I don't want to do that. I just know when I put Jordan in, he's gonna fucking hit 3s, and that's what I want from my actors and as a director. That's the goal. Because you don't want to give notes. There are going to be directors in your life love giving you notes, and you just have to, I guess you're gonna have to play ball with that. Do you love giving notes?
No, I feel like I just talk less. No, I also feel like as an actor, the worst thing to do, and I have learned this, I have been victim of this myself, is to not understand the note and feel stupid for not understanding the note and not ask a follow-up question. Like, I had a director ask me to do it more droll, and I was like, okay. And then I just did it bigger. And then they were like, no. And I was like, well, what did that word mean? And they were like, sarcastic. And I was like, got it. So there's a benefit, and if you don't understand the note or you don't understand how to put the note into effect, just ask a follow-up question, because that'll prevent them from doing another whole 3.5-minute take.
Well, this is good. Goes back to the demystifying thing. Don't let them scare you. Just act like draw.
What does that mean?
Well, yeah. What do you want? And then, you know. And again, it's like that camaraderie thing, co-worker thing.
Or like, why do you think I'm coming in that way? If I'm being sarcastic, is it because, am I flirting? Am I not being, do I not respect the person? Like, what is the note under the thing I'm supposed to play?
You just don't want to go on camera being tight, right? You always want to stay loose, and you always want to be relaxed.
Terry tells me that a lot.
You and you've changed.
Thank you.
I mean, you've gotten softer, and it's been really wonderful actually to work with you over the years because the character's grown, but also just our ability to work with each other has.
I mean, I really fought you in the beginning.
Absolutely.
I specifically sought you out because I knew who you were and how you coached, and then I proceeded to fight you for an entire year.
A lot, yeah.
And you're always like, you don't need to push anger. That's something you just have. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm not angry. I'm not an angry person. And you're like, okay. No, you're great.
I wasn't going to fight City Hall. But maybe that helps us to segue into, because we have just a few, how many minutes left? Like 5 minutes left
Yeah,
or
5
something?
minutes.
Because I was actually quite impressed with the preparation that you constantly do. Am impressed by that, and specifically for your directing, that you went and sought out this teacher at NYU to do cinematography. You also didn't mention that we spoke about those episodes. Like, I worked with her on Animal Kingdom, and it wasn't an acting coaching thing, but it was going through all the beats, page by page, from an acting perspective, so that she could just be clearer, and she already had really solid ideas. So it's just kind of being a sounding board for that. So what's the question? The question is, because here, there are a lot of people here who are training, and we're talking a lot today about the business. So why are they training? And what's the value of training? And then what's the value for you working with a coach?
Well, I mean, everything is in the preparation. I mean, I would say 80% of the job is what happens before you get there. I mean, the whole creation of the character, the bouncing around ideas, the throwing out terrible ideas, the questioning of am I using something from my personal history, or is this totally different? Should I use my imagination? It's really nice to have somebody there with you that you respect. I mean, I have you, I have Sam at home to bounce ideas off of, and to get positive reinforcement for the things that are good ideas, and I'm not so sure about that on the things that might not be right. And sometimes we don't always agree. But sometimes we're kind of after the same thing, but it doesn't sound like it. Yeah, and I think there's so much benefit to talking about things that I direct with you, because you illuminate things or suggest blocking things. I mean, even a lot of what we do, even with Shameless, is suggest it would be great if in this moment in the argument you're in the kitchen and you have a rag and you throw it down, and on the day, if I don't have a rag, I have a bottle, or I have a plate, or I have something that I remember on the day was what you were telling me. The note behind the note was to have something to physically use to express myself. So it's all those things that to have someone around me that supports me and gives me ideas, and even if it's not the exact idea, I can do something like it. I understand the why, so I can do a different how. And so, yeah, I think it's everything for me.
So that helps you to be Michael Jordan.
Right. Michael Jordan isn't, I mean, maybe he's just amazing. I mean, there are actually some actors that don't prepare.
He shot a lot of three-point.
Well, and remember, he didn't, again, because I'm older, he didn't make JV. He got cut. He didn't make the first team he tried out in high school. So yes, he did have to practice a lot. And you do have to keep doing it, even when you're not up for a game or you're not up for an audition. I love the fact that no matter what, whether she's working or not, she's working. You know what I mean? She's constantly doing it. Because the more you do it, the more you fuck up, the more you get that out of the way, the more you get to the right answers.
Yeah, here.
Thank you for coming in.
Again?
I'm a fan of you. So,
Everyone, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about meaning, because I'm a second-year student, and I feel when something means something to me, it's everything else just falls into place, and it's a lot with your Mr. Robot. It's I read that
you took that from your life of growing up in America. Is there something that you do daily or regularly to hone into that core?
Therapy.
Therapy.
It's not a joke. We're in therapy. We go to therapy together. We are really into figuring out what it is that makes us feel certain ways, because if I can identify it and understand it and forgive it and make it better, then I understand those triggers, and then I can employ those triggers. I can make them work for me instead of making them hurt me and people around me.
Well, and also I think that's a very, like, that's not a work question, that's like a being a person question, right? And not, you know, I don't know who in the world is well equipped to answer a question like that, because ultimately, for everybody,
just give your honest answer, honey.
There you go.
It's all about honesty.
It ultimately comes down to who you are, and this is my repetitive thing I've been saying all, you know, the whole Q&A, is that it's that finding that honest self. Because at the end of the day, you know, are you trying to say something, and what is it that and do you know what you're trying to say? And then knowing that is such a freeing thing, because then you can figure it out, and this is what I'm trying to say, this is my voice, this is who I am. I don't see a lot of other people saying it. That's got to have some value. That could open doors. That could be an interesting story. That could be an interesting performance.
Can you give us an example of what you feel like what your log line in life is, and how you've used that to bring that to your art?
I know, absolutely not. I have no idea what the log line is, because like I don't know. Like to me, it's not about being reductive like that. It's not about like no. And I mean that because that's when you can get Titanic in space. You know what I mean? That's a log. You know, that to me, it's just about because I'm a bunch of different things. I'm a Trump hater. I'm a Knicks lover. I love Joey Badass, and I love his music, and I love his acting, and I love Vanderpump Rules, and I have no idea how to put all of that in a log line. You know what I mean? But I'm just honest about all of those things, and I'm constantly trying to dig into what it all. Well. Yes, and so, you know, specifically, she's trying to. So I'm taking your advice. You're directing me really well. No. I'm hearing you. I mean, you know, in terms of Mr. Robot, obviously, it's not a secret. I'm Arab American, and I was in Egypt about 6 months after the Arab Spring, and that was like a lightning rod for me. And I actually, this is the one thing I withheld writing Mr. Robot for a long time. I had the idea for about 10 years. To write about the hacker subculture, and I remember it feeling too exterior. Like I was like, well, I want to do a show about hackers, but who? Then the next question becomes, who is that person? How do I make that character real? And then I was like, he's gonna rant and rave about society. Well, who like that's gonna get annoying, man. Like you're gonna hear this guy rant and rave. Like what's underneath that? And when I went into Egypt and I saw my cousins who were all 19 years old and literally risking their lives to protest, to start a revolution in their country, to make a difference in their society. This isn't like putting it on Facebook, although they did that too, but it was going out there, being live with it, putting it, like that's how important it was to them. That was exciting to me. That was the last thing that made Elliot click. And it's because I procrastinated and took a trip to Egypt.
It all comes back to how you're right, honey.
So I think we should wrap up now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank both Emmy and Sam for being here.
Thank you, guys.
I want to thank Industry City again for hosting us here. And I want to thank all of you for being here. It was great. Thank you so much.